I'm sitting here cooking and I'm like having some thoughts and I'm thinking about how interesting it is when I think about the conversations I've had with people about sex work. I had a cousin once. I was trying to convince, like, listen, you need to go into those strip clubs and make some money. She was like, in between jobs, not doing the greatest. And it's like, yo, you need to consider, like, you a bad bitch. You be up in this strip club right now. Ooh, be up in this strip club right now and they got all eyes on you. You need to probably get up into this game and get this money. And her response was, I don't have a stripper lifestyle. And I thought that was so interesting because I'm just like, well, what the fuck do you think a stripper lifestyle is? Like, you don't have a family? You think strippers don't have kids? You don't have student loan debt? You don't have grocery bills? You don't want to, like, you don't go to the doctor? You don't want to buy clothes? Like, it blows my mind when I think about the conversations I have with people and trying to figure out what the fuck, who the fuck they think sex workers are. Who do you think sex workers are? Like, why are we such a phenomenon? You know, we live in this society that really is double-minded about how they think and what they do. Like, on the one hand, it's like sex work is the oldest profession. But then on the other hand, it's like, why should these people get paid for having sex? But wait a minute, you just said that sex work is the oldest profession. So if you understand it to be a profession, I mean, what is a profession? Is a profession just a fleeting thing that we do for, I don't know, an extended period of time for free? Or is a profession something that's a kind of work, a kind of dedication, loyalty to something, anything, even if it's just art? And I don't want to, even if it's art, I shouldn't say just art, but even if it's art. It's as if people don't realize that sex workers make up so many different kinds of people within our daily lives. And this is why you've got to be careful when you're talking about sex workers, because you never know when one of us is in the room. Because we do everything. We do everything, you know. When I think about this event and the people that I'm trying to target, you know, I'm getting a lot of sex worker spaces, which is fantastic. Because this is it's a space that's led by sex workers, by black sex workers. But it's a space that's led and for the betterment and the uplifting and the visibility of sex workers. But it's kind of hard trying to reel other people into it that are also just, not just, but are also in other parts of work in our everyday lives. Like, you know, for instance, artists. And it's baffling to me that people don't recognize that sex workers can also be artists. Like, we're not just hobbyists sitting around in our house counting how many dicks we can suck today. Right? Some of us we do broad spectrums of art. Some of us are poets, spoken word artists, filmmakers, photographers, painters, dancers, actors. What we do goes so far, you know. And I'm here thinking about a comment last week on that ridiculous Blackout Tuesday misunderstanding when I posted on our dancers page, and I was like, damn, it's International Whores Day. And her comment was, because she clearly thought that I was trying to say something else, was like, the sex workers can enjoy their day while we do this, something to that extent. It was a little bit snappy. And I was like, that's really not what I meant. But the point is that idea that sex workers is just so different from what you're trying to do, especially within this human rights, Black Lives Matter narrative. the idea to just be like, well, the sex workers can just, is really interesting to me, because I just don't know who they think is making up the population of the earth. Like, is it only people, like, are sex workers really that just a very specific group of people that you don't even think that we might make up the dancer family? You know, and I had to clarify for her, like, that's not what I meant. What I meant was, I can't stay quiet on this day because it is International Whores Day, so I can't unite with my dancer family as a dancer. You know, I just thought it was just such a rude, dismissive response that really shows you just how people view sex workers. It's like this whole event is about worker solidarity and trying to get other forms of labor to come into the mix, because we'd have a stronger voice if we stood together as opposed to everyone being divided in their own movement. That's what I personally think. Because I don't think people who are farm workers are going to like have a big of an impact as if they came together with other forms of labor, people in labor, to amplify the movement, you know? But there's this constant separation of our work to everything else, and it's so crazy because we don't do anything different than you other than the sex. Just like you don't do anything different than a farmer other than to farm if you are an office worker. You understand? Like the politics are oftentimes very much the same. The way that you have to navigate with, you know, people are very much the same. And when it comes to just how the government treats us and how sometimes how our employers treat us, it's pretty much the same, you know. Even when you are self-employed, like an artist or an escort, let's just say. Even you know, you got clients that kind of replace the entire employer narrative, and they make demands and they try to push your buttons, and you have to kind of, in some regard, follow their rules, play their game in order to get ahead. And I think that's very much missing from people's consciousness about sex worker rights. So y'all are out here acting like this is just so fucking miraculous, so bizarre, so alien that you can't support it. This is a workers' movement. This whole sex worker rights narrative is a human rights movement. It is a labor movement. You know, it has its history in immigration. And if you look at the slave trade and just how that has shaped our consciousness, you'll get a really broad idea on how intersectional sex worker rights is. So I would love it if people would stop acting like this is so abnormal a thing. If you know this to be the oldest profession, then respect it as work and understand it as also work that intersects with your work. And look at all the rights that people are fighting for right now. It's not just like sex workers that are being left out of the conversation of money and aid by the government. It's all kinds of people who perform different kinds of labor. These knives are so bad that I have to go like this to cut a damn tomato. I've got to get a sharpener. All kinds of labor are being left out of this. Like, it's crazy. And if that is not enough reason to like unite, I don't really know what is. So I've got the July 22nd thing coming, which is my birthday celebration. And for my birthday, since I'm not traveling this year, I wanted to give back to the community and really bring some visibility to the movement and really try to take this moment to try and bridge the gap, you know? Bring awareness. Like, and it's also not different from the movement of equality and black people's rights to live right now. I'm black, and I still fall into the Black Lives Matter narrative, and I'm leading this space. So it's not that you can't, it's not that we can't understand what's happening with BLM and think that sex work is exclusionary from that. It is the same fight. Because we act like black sex worker voices don't really matter. It's very difficult for black sex workers to get any true leverage in the mainstream space, making money, and having really powerful visibility in the movement. Because like with everything else, white people dominate those spaces, and they don't even have to have like a dramatic story. It just has to be one tiny little morsel of anything that is compelling to white people. And if you know, when it comes to who gets thrusted forward, the bar is set very low for white people. You know, the bar is really, really low. And it could just be like, oh, I was thrown out at 18 by my parents, and then I had to, it's kind of like the Carol Baskin story, where she like has a fight with her boyfriend, and then she meets this rich motherfucker. Well, he did some bullshit, but, you know, she meets this rich motherfucker, and clearly she fucked him. And all of a sudden now she's rich. That's how easy it is for white people to navigate spaces. Every space, it doesn't matter where you go, that's the kind of privilege that they have. So, please support this July 22nd fundraiser. There are ticketing links. There's a GoFundMe. You can go to the website. I'll put it in the boxes. Buy the merch. We only need 2,000 people to buy $22 tickets to make $44,000, which is $1,000 over our goal. Only 2,000 people. So that would help us. And then I'm working on trying to get some more high-profile people involved, and it's not very easy. We don't have a publicist with any contacts or anything like that, so we're kind of doing this very grassroots. Because I'm looking for somebody to help us kind of unify and bring a larger awareness to this, because it's disturbing to me how much people think that this is so much separate from all the other fights for rights and basic necessities and the freedom to travel. How much they think this is separate from sex worker rights. We're doing that. We're doing all of that. We have to, because it's not separate. It just isn't. You know? And it's not fair, like when certain women are traveling, that they're being suspected. Well, even they're being suspected of being prostitutes, but even if they are, to be like, oh, you can't fucking travel and have sex. Look, to close off, I just want to tell you all that not only do you come from sex, you also have sex and reproduce. You have sex for fun. You have sex to solidify a space to live. That's why some of you have gotten married. That's why some of you have foreign husbands and wives, because you were calculating like that. You were doing that kind of work and using sex as the weapon. So the only difference between a lot of people and sex workers is that they're getting paid to have sex and you're just getting fucked. And contrary to popular belief, every sex worker is not fucking 10 people a night. Granted, I've done that. But every sex worker doesn't operate that way. This is a business, and everyone has their own rules, just as you have your own rules with how you work. TheBSWC.org.